Did you grow up in the team roping world, or what was? Is it a horse show background?
Yeah, my dad trained cutters, reiners, cow horses.
Okay, and that was from the beginning, like your experience with it.
Yeah. Then we lived by a guy. He roped a little bit, but not at all. Like he doesn't rope.
Right.
He does, but he doesn't. But we lived by a guy in Oklahoma when I was a kid that roped. And Clay Cooper actually lived there for a year when I was like 7, 8 years old. I roped with him every day in the summer when I was a little kid.
With the Clay Coop?
Clay Cooper. Yeah. Charles Pogue, Clay Cooper.
Okay.
Every single day. It was pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah. So take me through that a little bit as far as the horse show deal. It's completely, I mean, we're starting to get exposed to it a lot now with the futurities, but the atmosphere and like the work ethic, when I first got to Stephenville, I was around a few guys, and I think those guys were absolute grinders. So kind of take me through that. Like, what was your upbringing, like the work ethic that you had to do to kind of be part of that?
Yeah, well, I tell people now, I'm like, now I work. Rodeoing was kind of a vacation because now I like get up and go to work, you know. I worked, obviously, practicing and worked on my horses and did all that rodeoing, but now I do it on horses all day compared to 3 or 4 that I had, you know, in time. But I, like, growing up, I mean, my dad trained, like I said, reiners, cow horses, cutters, the whole deal. So I don't know how many people, I mean, if you go to, say, Fort Worth in the middle of the night, 3 in the morning, the amount of horses that are being ridden will blow your mind, you know. And it's every night, not the night before the finals. It's every night getting ready to show. So I guess, you know, growing up, I mean, we did the work them all night and do all that stuff. So it's like, well, I guess I'm back to where I was when I was 10 years old working for my dad. But roping on them is a little bit different. Just it's not a 15 or 20 minute procedure like it is in the cutting and some of the other events, you know.
Right.
There's just more involved. You got a partner to help you and steers that depict what you can do, and that's what's so much different, I guess you'd say, in our event compared to reining or cutting or whatever. So,
and kind of like growing up through this is what I think's unique is you really grew up in a situation where it was like past 18-hour days. It's 22-hour days. Yeah. It's as hard as you can go on all of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the difference as far as like getting them ready mentally for like cutting horse, like that type of shows? It seems like you see the lopers and that's constantly what they're doing, right? Like they've got to get them pretty tired, right? And then like the rope horse side, it's a little bit quicker as far as that goes, or no? What do you think?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes not. The whole deal about the cutting is those horses are bred to be so cowy and think so much, you know, like highbrow cats I remember when I was young and they came out and they're like, these horses are the most, like, they never stop thinking. And so it's almost, and the dual raise the same way. I remember like Lloyd Cox went and stayed with him, and he would work a horse for like on one cow maybe, and then go tie it up and let it sit there for a minute, and then work another, and like kind of rotate them in that aspect. So like getting them ready, the reason, I think to each his own, every horse has its own needs, you know what I'm saying? Like some guys might only trot a horse the whole time, and some guys might lope a horse more, and some guys might walk a horse for an hour just to like get their mind where it needs to be. So it is all about their mind. It's nothing about physicality or whatever, you know. I mean, you obviously want them warmed up, but it's what does it take to have this horse thinking the best way he can think when he walks in the pen, you know?
When did you start realizing that like that's probably one of the most important things about training is their mind, like understanding their mind?
when did I thought I knew it when I was young, but
Well,
I didn't.
I feel like that's the best part
honestly,
about being
I think after rodeoing and having to figure out how to control my mind, because I wasn't very good at it. So I think after rodeoing it, honestly, helped me think that way towards horses. Um, my dad
after rodeoing. So
yeah.
when did you start rodeoing?
Really rodeoing?
Yeah.
Like 2013 when I graduated college.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what was it, about 2-3 years ago when you?
Yeah, I quit rodeoing in 21. So
21.
8 years of rodeoing and not to say like I trained some horses when I was rodeoing still, and I did like, but I had more time then. Like I'd only have 3 or 4 outside horses. Well, I could spend all day on them if I wanted to, you know.
Right. I guess the point I'm kind of going with this is you're in your early 30s before you really starts to hit home.
Yeah. Nobody said I was smart. Yeah.
Well,
took me a while. Yeah.
But isn't that like part of being a horseman is understanding what they're thinking, and really to understand that language it takes time. Like it's not something you can do. I mean, it takes. I hear the same thing like constantly with different horse trainers, but it's not something it probably takes 10, 20 years to really like.
Oh, it takes a lifetime, I would say.
Yeah.
Honestly. Like, yeah, you're right. Like, I think you start getting it, learning, but I mean, the great horse trainers, the Corey Cushings, the guys, it's amazing how humble those guys are and what they'll listen to, and it makes you think about it. Like, as soon as you thought you had it figured out, here's a guy that's won everything there is to win and is still searching for the next thing that he needs to work on, you know?
Do you think maybe it's the mindset of I don't have it figured out and I'm not going to have it figured out? Is that what those...
Exactly.
Do you think that's probably what some of the better horsemen have in common?
Absolutely, yeah.
And how did... You mentioned your mind not being right.
Yeah.
And that helped you get to the stage of like learning how to help your horses out.
Yeah.
What's that like as far as... What does it look to you like as your mind's not right or you're like in... Well, what does that mean, I guess?
Like, well, when you're driving all night and getting to run one steer and driving all night and doing it over and over and you're not doing good, and you got bills to pay and all that, you start getting your stuff together. You're like, man, I got to learn how to think right here and to be prepared to do the best I can do without overdoing that. You know what I mean? I think you can, and it works the same on a horse. I think we all want our horses to be so prepared and so perfect that I think guys learn, they're like, man, I overdid it on that one. Like his mind is done. Like he doesn't think about it anymore like he should. So it's such a fine line that you flirt with and everybody forgets it. But like our mental game matters too. And showing these horses, like, I mean, you got a customer's money involved. You got all this time you've put on this horse involved, so there's a lot of, I will always say it's the mentality of you and the horse being together at the same time at the show is worth more than how great that horse is physically,
Right, because you can kind of keep moving forward, right? They're building, you're with them, and you're essentially setting up that foundation, right, where they can compete. And if things go your way, it's good.
Yeah.
And it looks like it has some consistency too, right?
Right. Yeah.
So how do you start understanding like your mind's not right? Because if, then what does that look like?
I mean, failure, I would say.
How do you look at failure? Like what does failure mean to you? And how are you taking it into like a negative way?
So, I mean, you learn obviously winning is such a broad thing. Like it's over every sport, right? So everybody has little ways that they learn to win, like in their own, within themselves. And so I've like read all the books, Inner Game of Tennis is such it sounds like the weirdest book in the world to read about roping, but it's almost one of the most relatable books in the world to roping.
Right.
It's like, you win with small victories. Well, when you lose, like you have to learn to figure out like, and I love that saying, like, I never lose, I learn, you know?
Right.
So there's a lot to that, but you got to make sure you're learning. You're not just saying, I never lose, you know? I've got to learn, which means you go back and figure out what works for you. And that doesn't happen for some people, especially me, overnight. You know, that comes with trying different things mentally to work for you, you know?
So we talked about this before we were recording, and I kind of made the comment of like one of the hard things I struggled with rodeoing was when you have to almost be ignorant enough to believe in what you're doing is going to work, but then have enough humility or lack, you know, like no ego to know like I need to add some things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for you, was there a line, like I know with inner game of tennis and like finding little wins, it also touches on like subconscious and conscious mind. And that was really, in that book, that was kind of the big game changer for me was I have a tendency to overthink and try to control it, but like learning how to shut that part of your brain off, the conscious part, and let the subconscious kind of run things, especially when you're competing. And then I felt like it let me make the little notes. Okay, this was happening. All right, and I would like take those, and then when I had a chance to work on them, I would try to apply that like consciously and go fix it. But I knew like subconsciously I couldn't fix those little things. And that's where that book really changed.
There's even like Pete Carroll's book with winning in mind is like, or no, what is it? Whatever it's called. It's like compete within yourself more. So I overthink everything, every single thing. And people never, or not that they were supposed to know, but never really knew that about me because I would act like I didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't matter. But with inside me, I'm thinking about it like a lot. And so, you know, I learned to almost embrace the fact that like, hey, I'm good. You know, like, it's not as big of a deal to me right now, but internally, I'm like, I've got to figure out what it takes for me to not do that again, right? So I don't, like Clay Cooper, you never saw his emotions, right? Ever, never. And so I got to like be around that so young, then it was like, how does this guy not get mad when he messes up?
Did you ever ask him that or talk to him about it?
Yeah, but I'm just punk kid. And
you asked, but you weren't listening?
Yeah. It's same, like, that goes back, I mean, that's a lot of talk about stuff. But, yeah, it's like figuring out that fine line of, hey, like you say, don't care so much that you create bigger problems for yourself, because I've done that too, and try to change everything that's going on, my position, my horses, my ropes, my everything, you know? And so it's more of a figuring out like, hey, where do I hit this line and how do I keep my mind in a good spot? You know, but that's not just roping. That's like all day leading up to the roping. You know, like people talk about, like Bubba Buckley's favorite thing, don't eat chicken on game day.
Yeah.
But that's like, it's not about eating chicken on game day.
It's setting the tone.
It's your mindset on game day. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's, you know, athletes eat a certain way on game day or what, you know, drink certain things on game day to where their mind can be so focused. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same on horses. It's like, you don't want to like, when you're saddling that horse that day, scare the crap out of him and he's already, you know, just there's small little details that you're like, hey, just let him relax today. I'm not going to pick on him today. You know what I'm saying? It's same with me. Don't pick on yourself all day and tell yourself you suck and then go that night and expect to win, because guess what's going to happen?
Right.
You've done talked yourself into sucking all day. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and it probably, even it feeds it, like where if you win, then that's what you're supposed to do, and if you lose, it's because you suck, and it like keeps building on that side of it. Yeah. So growing up in the showing world, you got exposed to Clay Coop at around 7 years old.
Yeah, I don't even remember.
Just
like
early,
7, 8, whatever it was. Yeah.
Young.
Yeah.
when was the time when you like, hey, I want to start pursuing roping, or when was there like a moment there where you really decided I had a passion for
the
this?
reason my dad trained horses, and my dad he's really good at training a horse. I know that sounds vague, but he's like, we did clinics when we were littler, when I was younger, and he got asked to do a bunch of just horsemanship, like from anything from going to feedlots to, I mean, cow horse clinics, all that stuff. Like he was just kind of known as a horseman. Like, so Clay quit rodeo and moved to Marietta to see if he wanted to start doing the horse training,
Oh, really?
deal. Yeah. And
Okay.
so the only reason he would come ride with my dad in the mornings to work on his horsemanship, and then we would go rope in the evenings with him, or afternoons, you know. And so I never did not want to rope, like never, since day one. It's never even crossed my mind that I wasn't roping. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I quit. I love playing sports. I love baseball. I love football. I love all those sports, but they were always second. And I never sat down and wrote it down that, hey, roping over everything. It just was
What it was.
That's what it was. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Okay. So going to this, at what stage did you try to put yourself in a situation where you could rope professionally? Because as soon as you graduated college, like what was the mindset as far as like going to finish school, then pursue rodeoing, or how did that kind of look to you?
Yeah, like in high school, well, when we moved from Oklahoma, we moved to Fredericksburg, Texas, and got the huge opportunity. My dad worked for David Dewhurst. He was the lieutenant governor and trained horses for him. And they had this place that we got to live on was amazing. And we always had guys coming there to rope. So I got to being pretty successful young, like 14, 15, like amateur rodeo in South Texas, and having success, you know. And so I was like, man, maybe this will work, you know, maybe I can make it work right now against the older guys. So same deal. Like I never set out and said, hey, you know, I'm going to go to school, graduate school, and go make finals in 2 or 3 years. Like that wasn't ever it. I was more of like, hey, what's God's plan in this more than anything? Like just let the timing work itself out. When opportunities present themselves, make sure you're ready. So like I never ever didn't work my butt off at roping. Like never. So I don't even know what it's like not to do it. You
Right.
know? I mean at 15, 16 years old, me and my buddies would, you know, it's hot in the summertime, we're out of school, we'd rope till 11, 12 o'clock at night. We'd start working cutters at 3:30, 4 in the morning. And that's what we did. Like we worked cutters till it was too hot, and we're all idiot young kids. We'd go jump in the river all afternoon, play in the river, and go back at it. Like we just didn't know any different, you know?
Right.
So I guess maybe I'm dumb. I don't know. Maybe it's too simple. Like I just enjoyed it so much that's all I wanted to do. You know?
Well, I think that's the coolest thing about it, right? Is it's something that you enjoy, and then making a career out of it. That's like, I admire people that do that the most, because it can take something that you really love and make it really hard. And you've got to answer a lot of questions throughout that period, right? And there's a lot of struggles, because it's just not a traditional way to make a living, right?
No. Yeah, it's not not at all.
Yeah.
It's like, that's one thing too, like growing up, I was always around, my parents were always got us around business oriented people, like whether we worked for them or with them or whatever it was, they're very business oriented. And obviously you hear your whole life, well, rodeo's not a job, rodeo's not a living, blah, blah, blah. Well, not if you look at it that way. I mean, it can be if you let it be. You know,
Right.
If you handle yourself correctly and you take care of your finances and you make smart business decisions. There's some guys that have made a ton of money rodeoing, you know. It might not just be by what they win at each rodeo, but so like business, like I learned to think of it more business oriented, you know, in ways like educated risks, not so much calculated, but educated risks. Like think your way through before you go buy a $high horse or whatever it is, or maybe you have the horse you need, you're just not doing what you need to make him what you need. You know what I'm saying? So like educate yourself and know that, hey, just because I go spend $100,000 on a heel horse doesn't make me ready to win. You know what I mean? Or a head horse or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, be down the road with the decisions. Like, hey, if I got this heel horse, what does it look like after I've got this heel horse? What do I got to do? And just being able to take it further down the road and kind of know what challenges and stuff you're going to be taking on at those stages. What do you think is the biggest lesson you learned from your dad growing up?
Now, I would say the biggest lesson I learned is I should have freaking opened my ears and shut my mouth. Because I had all these things that I'm learning later on. If I would have listened, but it's so different. Like when you're a kid working for your dad and you're getting told all day what to do and you're an idiot and getting in trouble.
You're kind of numb to it or ignorant to it. Like you don't really know what's in front of you, right?
But like now I watch a lot of things and it's like, golly, we've done that since I was a little kid. Like we did that exact thing on a horse when I was, young, but I just young and dumb and didn't pay attention. You know what I mean?
Now I'm 30 and I'm figuring out this is a good idea.
Now I have to pay attention. Back then I didn't, so that, but man, I don't know. You need to be a kid and have fun too. Like you got to enjoy it and enjoy life. You get to be old and have to make a living the rest of your life. You need to enjoy it a little bit, but.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest things, is it just seems like you know a lot when you're young. And you
don't know nothing.
Yeah. I think it's a Waylon Jennings song. He's like, exactly. It seems like I know more when I was 18 than I do now.
Exactly.
And that's just a battle you have to kind of ride, because I think the other thing is I'm just going to, for lack of better words, but just kind of be ignorant to it. But it gives us like false confidence. Then I think that allows you to try things and do things. And so that gives you some freedom. It's just, if you can manage that confidence and the ability to try things, I think that really allows you to excel. But then you're obviously going to be messing up. So it's like learning from the failures or learning how to like look at things kind of objectively. I think that's I know that I definitely didn't do that when I was younger.
Yeah.
So how long did you get to ride with Clay?
He was only there for like a year. It was cool. I got to ride Ike one day.
Okay.
I was like,
buckskin heel horse.
Heel horse of the year.
One of the best ones ever, arguably.
Him and Roni were probably the two most well-known horses back then in the day or whatever. But yeah, I had to like put my feet in the stirrup leathers. I couldn't reach the stirrups, and I ran like 3 steers on him and thought we were going to run through the back fence, and then the feet were right there and I had to throw. So it's like, that was pretty cool. But Clay just smile and never say a word to me.
Right.
I remember asking him something about heeling, and he'd just say, well, don't miss. Like, well, yeah, but how do I not miss? But you think, I've never forgot that either. It's like, don't miss, so figure out how not to miss is what he was saying. Like, figure out how you can train yourself not to miss. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think having a mindset, like, that guy is unique. I think it's kind of funny, like, I don't see him around much, but you just watch, like, he was kind of the first one to really embody that, I think, as far as he never missed. Yeah. I think the first year I went rodeoing was him and Jake had started back, and it was like July 24th, and someone told me he'd rub like 2 or 3 legs all year. Yeah. And it's like, it just almost seems superhuman to be able to do stuff like that. Yeah, and that's because he had to speed up his roping. But if the game would have stayed the same and he could go to the second or third hop, there would not have been those legs either. Right. But I think that's something now about roping that's makes it even more mental than it was back then for those guys. Is like, man, you don't miss, but you're still losing every time because you go to the third hop or whatever, or the header takes an extra swing, and so that's hard on you mentally. You got to be okay with playing that line of like, it's okay if I miss some, but be smart about it and don't,
don't make it a insanity and do it every time, right? So like guys like him and Rich back in the day were so great at that. Like they just like, well, heck, if I catch 2 feet, I'm winning.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays it's not that simple, you know?
Right. I think one thing that helped me was I kind of decided after I'd missed a few steers and I was getting pretty upset, and I was like, I decided if I miss in a good spot, like I'm trying to win something and it makes sense where you're throwing your rope, like I can live with those misses. Yeah. And like I didn't mind missing trying to win something.
Right.
But it's the dumb shots those are the ones that would eat at me. But I think that's okay too, because that's what I wanted to fix whenever I got home.
Yeah.
Obviously I want to fix it all, but those were the ones that were like, okay, I got to eliminate dumb shots. And then if I throw my rope in the right spot, I feel like I usually throw my rope when I know I can catch, or I feel like I got a chance. Yeah. So I'm like, I can build on this, you know? So that
was the coolest thing about getting to rodeo with Martin, like right at the first. And Martin's so matter of fact, like he's so dry, and everybody, you know, he's like, well, it's like exactly what you just said. He's like, if you set yourself up correctly and catch and miss, that's way better than the alternative of being an idiot, being on the wrong side of the steer, being over here, there, just not being focused on your job, you know? And like, I mean, he was one of the greatest mentally that I've ever been around. Like that guy is so smart, and so he probably taught me more about thinking about it, but not overthinking about it. You know what I'm saying? He played that game
like strategy
so good. Like he was unbelievable about. He backs in the box at the NFR with a sucker in his mouth. You know, nobody like who does that.
Right.
But he's like carefree, but inside he's ready. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I would say he probably taught me more of that, like what you just said. You know, set yourself up for success and dictate that as a win. Like, just because you didn't win, but you did the steps to do it, so be okay with that. You know what I mean? And call that a win. So
how important is it to get around people that are kind of essentially they're at where like you want to be, like a Martin or like some people like call it mentors, or just being like,
it's everything to me, but it's how you get in that position that I feel like a lot of people don't do. Like the reason that I got in all these positions was because nobody ever saw me not working towards getting better. And I was humble enough to, like, it's so hard because you got to have the confidence to get better, right? You got to be a confident person, but you also have to be humble enough to do what it takes to get better, which means so much more than anybody really digs into. Like, I mean, go to Luke Brown's house and take 5 hill horses and rope all day if you can. Like, wear him out till you can do that. You know what I'm saying? Ask and ask. Can I come saddle your horses or help you? What can I do to get in those spots, instead of being like, hey, Luke, when are you going to give me a chance at the jackpot? You know, that, like, everybody skips all these steps coming up. I remember Rich saying that, you know, he cleaned T's stalls forever just to get to practice with him. And then they end up roping together and make the finals. Like, that's a cool way to think about it. But and our world's changed. I mean, I was so dumb. Like, I worked for free so much, but it paid off in the end. You know what I'm saying? Whereas nowadays, younger guys are like, well, what's in it for me? You know, like, our world's kind of changed to a me world. And it's like, man, I would saddle all of your head horses and all my heel horses, get the steers, do all that stuff if I got the chance to heel for somebody good. You know what I mean? Whoever it was, like Chad, Luke, whoever would allow it. You know what I mean? And those guys see that, you know? And when you're in the middle of the heat of the battle, like, they remember that kind of stuff, you know? I never got to rope with them, but I learned how they worked at it and how they competed and how their mindsets are. And like Martin's the same way. You never know that Martin made the finals 14 times and it's one of the greatest healers of all time. Like, you never know that about him because he's just the same guy every day and he works hard. But I think we both like he grew up that way, and I did too. Like you're not above anybody else to work less than them and get the same results. You're just not that person, you know?
Do you think, like when you talk about the money thing, do you think I see this, I'll get asked questions of like, hey, I want to come, like we'll do a podcast with someone. They'll be like, hey, I want to go like work for that guy or do something. And those guys usually come and go pretty quickly. And there's very little longevity. And like one thing that's always struck me, it's like, I look at Cade Rice or Joseph, I think they're good examples. I feel like those guys worked underneath someone for a very long time. They did. And I don't know that they make a lot of money when they do that. But in 10 years or 12 years, which I think that's about what both those guys put in of incredibly hard work, as much as they could do. I don't think they could have worked any harder. Well, at the end of that, what they have is all of that knowledge and experience, and then it's worth something. So I think it's like, I feel like that short-term mindset of even like, oh, I try it for a month. Like if anyone's like, hey, I'm gonna come try it for a couple of months, I'm like, don't even come. Yeah, exactly. Like say I'm gonna try it for 7 years. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, exactly. You know,
or as long as it takes, whatever. It is.
Like 7 years or as long as it takes, or reevaluate in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But like no one's really. I think everyone's just so short-term. But it's just like how long would you say it takes to be like? Let's just say for like a good healer, like a solid jackpot roper who might be a 6 or a 7, but hasn't been exposed to a lot of horsemanship. If you wanted to say how long would it take for that person to get where they can show horses really well? Like how many years do you think it would take? I mean, it's more than 5.
I don't think there's a perfect answer to that.
I'm just trying to give me a ballpark of like. Well,
I think it depends on your mindset. Like, you can't be rushed by it. I'll say that. So what you're trying to get at is like, it takes time, right? It does take time, but it also, like, for some people, it might not take as long just on the sheer fact that they have a God-given feel on a horse. You know what I'm saying? Where some people have to learn how to get past their struggles of just their feel on a horse and pressing the wrong buttons at the wrong time or whatever it is and getting their horse to that point. But I mean, some people less than others, I'd say, but it doesn't come overnight by any means. But you know, it's funny how people think they learn. Like they think they learn by someone teaching them, but I don't. Like I don't learn well listening to someone. I learn well by watching them do it and like what they get out of a horse or how they swing their rope or where it's at.
Interesting.
So there are people that learn better by like, hey, tell me 10 things to work on and I'll write them on a sheet of paper and I'll work on them, you know? So I think that is more important, like figuring out what works for you more than saying, hey, I'm going to spend 5 years, like this is my timeline to get ready. You know what I'm saying? So what happens in 5 years if you didn't do what it took? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, absolutely plan on putting the work in, putting the time in, putting the long haul in, doing more than what you think you should be doing, even if it feels stupid in the moment. But the other side of that is, hey, you better figure out what works for you and how you learn, because that's not the same as everybody else.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's just knowing yourself, right? Absolutely. And then the work ethic side is just as much as like it takes what it takes. I think I had an entrepreneur kind of tell me this. He's like, you're going to need to put a lot of hours in because your time isn't worth anything to anyone but you. Yeah. And when I started looking at it like that, I was like, well, he's right, because I don't really have that many skills. Yeah. And obviously no one's paying me to do this.
But I want to make my time worth something.
Yeah. So
that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So I just got to do as many hours as it takes. Yeah. Then that's it. I just got to go. And I think that helped me. But the longevity side of it is like, that's the thing, is everything's pretty short term. And everyone I've seen, it takes so long to get to a high level of horsemanship, because there's just so much experience that you need. And you got to go through, horses are going to teach you. So it takes a lot of horses, and it just takes time. Mm-hmm. And being patient is.
Yeah. Patience and willingness to be open-minded, like I said that I wasn't when I was a kid. Like
Yeah.
Pay attention to why your dad's telling you what to do. That, like, pay attention to why the best guy is winning and what he's doing to his horses and how he takes care of his customers and how he handles his employees. And like, there's so much to it that, especially now, like in the futurity world, it's like, you don't just get to call your header and be like, hey, where do you want to enter? It's like, hey, I got to call 10 customers and tell them exactly the same thing over 10 times. You know what I'm saying? And be gracious that you have those 10 customers to tell that to, and your employees that are working their butt off for you, and you want to freaking choke them half the time or whatever, you know what I mean? But it's like, you got to learn, like, there's so many more moving parts in this business, but it's such a fun, different way of competing. That, because you're trying to learn each of those 10 horses is different. So you're trying to learn how he learns. You're trying to learn what spot works better for him. And, there's just so many different scenarios that a guy can think about. And I think it's cool that, like I said earlier, like those guys that are the best that there's ever been are still learning.
Yeah. So let's shift to the kind of the futurity side and get into it. But I know for me, I had some experiences rodeoing that really like helped apply to the next thing. And just, so for you, while you're on vacation rodeoing for those few years, what have been some things that like were hard rodeoing that like hard on you, that you just probably hated, but have really helped kind of take the next step or like move on to pivot to the next thing in your life, which is just showing horses and the futurity side, or was there any of that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously winning, like learning how to win, learning when to push and when to back off would probably be the most important thing. Like, you've got a horse that maybe he's not a top tier first place kind of horse, but he's a fifth place kind of horse. And so, that's like at the rodeos, it's a one header or whatever, majority of the time. You can't do more than what the steer dictates, right? So same thing in the futurity world. Like, if I take that fifth place horse and try to make him a first place horse, I take away what he's good at. You know what I'm saying? So probably that, like using what you've got and using it to its best ability. And then honestly, one of the best things that rodeoing taught me was just the logistics of shifting everything around, moving things where they need to be to set up for success. So, whether it's having the right amount of people here to help you where you're not running ragged to get your horses ready, or, making sure that you're there in time and to where you can do a good job on all these horses. I think that probably taught me a lot, like how to get places, how to shuffle things around to make it work.
Right.
I think those are probably two of the biggest things about it, rodeoing.
So what's it been like competing at the futurities, and then obviously with like Gold Buckle, like what you guys are doing, but as far as you personally, how do you try to go about the futurity side? Like what are you looking for in your program, and like how's it been trying to shift to that? I mean, I think the good thing is you do have that like show horse background. So you had a lot of feel for horses, and then obviously rodeoing, heeling at a really high level. I mean, you made the finals, all that. So it's like, all of it's kind of there, but like, how do you put it together and then try to compete?
Well, I don't know if I've got it put together yet, but we're working on it.
What's the process of that look like?
Man, it's just same deal, like being ready for opportunities. I got to show for Dean Tufton for a couple years and got to show good horses that were trained by them out there. And Sean Grant was working with him and riding these horses and just learning, different ways to look at it, like implementing a process in the horse that you can always go back to. And so same deal, that goes back to like your, I call them fifth place horse or first place horse. Well, that fifth place horse might someday bring way more money than that first place horse because anybody could ride him, to whereas if I took him and tried to make him a first place horse, heck, I might not could have even ridden him because he'd have been so messed up, So I think that is something that the futurity world is headed to. I think that the great guys that have worked so hard and been so successful have created this platform that everybody wants to get to. Like all the young guys or trainers or whoever, like, hey, we want to get to that person, and be as good as them. So that's always a necessity to have those first place horses and people. But I feel like the business is in need of that fifth place horse that becomes a first place horse for a lower numbered guy, and we all know that there's way more lower numbered team ropers than there are high numbered guys, so I mean, I don't know if that's off topic or whatever, but it's like it all needs to work
together,
yep. Hand in hand, because like I tell that to Blake, that like when we're riding horses every day, I'm like, hey, don't forget what that horse is good at. Don't completely focus on what he's bad at all the time, because sometimes that little thing that he's good at, and you get it better and better and better, the bad will get overtaken, and I think that it's a learning curve. I've messed horses up and had to go back and fix them, but luckily, like getting the opportunity to be in front of Dean and Sean and like Ren Richard, getting to rope with him was so much more than just a good partner. Like I got to learn a lot about horses, and like having something to go back to on a horse is so important. I remember hearing Buster Welch say, he's like, Mr. Cutting Horse Trainer, like the man. He said, if you always put a horse up quiet, the next day when you get them out, they're quiet. You put them up wild and frantic, that's probably how they're going to come out the next day. So keeping more of that mindset of like, hey, let's make this horse the best he can be. And if it ends up being the first place horse, then icing on the cake,
Yeah. I think that gives it longevity too, right? Yeah. And I think that's like got to manage clients' expectations and things like that. But also you can, if you've got a good horse that the client can ride, whether he's first place or fifth place horse, that's better for them. That horse is worth more like than potentially what he would have been. So it's there. That creates longevity in the program.
Yeah, and I've had clients that are like, nope, I want you to show him and I want him to have a chance to win first. And I'm like, well, I'm not your guy. I'm sorry, but that's not what I'm here for. That's not my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to create the best product in that horse. And maybe somebody else can make him a first place horse. I'm not saying that, but for me and him, this is where I'm at. You know what I mean? And I promise you, I've worked my tail off to get there, on him, and done every step,
Yeah. Kind of being willing to give up money short term.
It is.
And for like because it's probably what you believe is best for everyone.
Well, it's more of a long-term business plan. Like you say, it's like, hey, if people know that when they send me a horse or whatever trainer, futurity trainer, that they have a chance to have a good product in the end, I feel like you're going to have long-term business plan compared to them just wanting a one and done. And then what do you got? You know?
So Cole, going from this handling the business side of your training program to being involved with the Gold Buckle Futurities, kind of take me through what has that been like as far as what's your role within that business, and like just tell me a little bit about the Gold Buckle Futurities in general.
Oh man, it's kind of like I said earlier about being ready for opportunities and being prepared for them, and it came like Caleb and I have always talked about the futurity business because it intrigued him, and he's not gonna be second place at something. Like that guy is got his mindset on being the best he can be at it. Well, we talked and had lots of ideas before I was ever even involved. And like growing up, my dad put on cuttings. And so I saw like the details that it takes to put into putting an event on, a good event, and I don't, everybody gets mad at the producer, and it's like, well, I understand. Maybe I did mess up there. I can take that. But don't forget all the good things we did do, and go deep and do more and than the normal. But man, we don't really, we're young. I mean, we're a year into this deal, and it's grown like crazy. And I would say just the fact that I got to grow up in so many different disciplines, between the reining, the cutting, the cow horse, and now rodeo, like it's just the professionalism that our group wants to be at, you know. I mean, between Shane and Jeremy and Caleb, and it's like, man, we've got a lot to do, and we're going to do it the best we can do, whether it takes more man hours than it should. That's what we're going to do. So I tell Caleb and them, I'm like, man, it sucks that we're building something that's cool and we don't even get to compete at it, you know, but it's what's best for the industry to just continue growing this industry together between all these associations, and making these horses worth more money, and making more people want to be involved because there is more money in it. And, you know, Jeremy is second to none in the horse Western industry. I mean, between sales and breeding, and he's won the world in the cutting. You know, I mean, he knows what he's doing, and we're pretty lucky, you know, to be on his end, to get to hear his knowledge, and because he's almost outside looking in roping wise, so he gets to tell us the better judgment call sometimes, you know, like, hey, from a business standpoint, this sounds better, you know. So there's so many moving parts in our deal. We have the stallion incentive, we have the breeder's incentive, and then we have our futurity that, you know, any horse can enter. So we got to make sure that all our T's are crossed and I's are dotted, because we want to put on a very fair and very professionally ran event, you know. And that's not just simple.
Yeah. So I think the first one let's talk about is the judging. So I've been around, I think this is the hardest part about it, right? And it's probably going to be always, like, just because judging in general is subjective, right? But as far as what I have watched personally, your guys' judging system has been the best one I've seen.
Well, thank you.
and I really didn't know much about it, but, like, you know, when we get to do the last live stream for you guys, and we have the judging meeting, so I like get to sit in on it and play a few videos for you guys, and actually, like, start listening to the detail and what you guys are talking about it and how it works. I'm like, all right, this is I did not think it was going to be that intense. And so, like, there's a couple things I want you to take me through, is like the judging system, how it works, but also, like, you're very protective of the judges. Like, it's like your role within it to make sure that they're doing their job, and you're essentially the medium between contestants and the judging. And so you're kind of protecting the shield a little bit that way. So kind of take me through both those things.
Yeah. So first off, I mean, this is not my or our system. Like, this is the system that the reining, the cutting, and the cow horse all have used for years and years. And so more than anything, we're just copying them. And the way I see it is, hey, these guys, all these associations have spent countless hours and countless dollars
and years
to come to realize that, hey, this is the most fair way to judge a major event. And you know, they're even more in depth than we are, and hopefully that's where we're headed. I mean, that's our goal, is to be there. It's like, you know, our goal at the end of the day is that the best runs win that day. That doesn't mean the best horse won that day, but the best 4 runs put together won that day. And, you know, that's a very hard thing when you're sitting in that chair, in that hot seat, to make sure you're making that decision correct. And so, being that we have a 4-judge system, dropping the high and the low, it lets those guys sit there and be okay with making a decision. You know, it's hard when, I mean, team roping happens fast. You know, it's more like, I compare it more to like the cow horse going down the fence. Like, you don't have that long to make these decisions. So we are human and we are going to make errors. I mean, that is what it is. So at least with this format that all these other associations have proven to work is, hey, Judge 1 missed that, but it didn't cost the contestant. You know what I'm saying? Or Judge 4 maybe thought that was better than what it was, but it didn't cost the next contestant. You know what I'm saying? So the ultimate goal is that these horses that make good runs get paid for it, And so growing up, my dad judged the reining a lot when I was young, and he judged the Olympics and went to Italy and went to Japan and went to all these places. So I heard growing up, like, judging mind, like thinking like a judge, and it's different. Like, you have to forget who your friend is that day, and you have to forget what happened last week when you watched a horse look good, because you're judging that run in that moment. And everybody has their own personal likes about a horse, head, heel, calf, breakaway. They all have this one little thing that they might like. So for me, being a competitor, and I have judged also at a Royal Crown event, like, so I guess you could say I know all the different angles of how you have to think about it, I'm not saying I perfected those angles, but we're working at it,
Right.
But the whole deal about, like, in the cutting and the cow horse, like, when you have this many judges and someone doesn't like your style, it doesn't keep you from winning that day if you made a good run. And so that's what our goal is. Like, hey, what if this judge doesn't like a head horse to pull a certain way? Well, if the other 3 liked him, you still have a chance to win when you make a good run. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
So the amount of human error we can take out of it, the more we can, the better off we are to build a better product for the customer, which is these owners who have put a lot of money in and a lot of time, and these trainers that have done the same. And so, at the end of the day, we're dealing with their money. Like, so we've got to do the best we can do. And judges, they don't want to hurt anybody or do a bad job for anybody. So that's why we've taken the same route as the cutting and the cow horse of being like, hey, I'm going to be the middle guy. I'm going to be your monitor. If you're mad, by all means, come talk to me. Please, let's talk about it. And we'll watch it. And I'm not saying the judges are right every time. But guess what? That's part of the game. You know what I mean? You knew that coming in here. That's, when Bobby Moat spurs the crap out of one at the NFR, that doesn't mean he wins the round.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, and he knew that when he got on the horse. You know what I'm saying? He wants to think he's going to win the round. Casey, those guys have it in their mind they're going to, but you've got 4 guys' opinions out there too.
Yeah.
Same thing in rodeo. They've got these 4 judges, and they drop those scores, the highs and the lows, to get to that spot. Well, it's, I'm not saying it's the perfect system, but it's been proven to be the best system.
Yeah. So let's just correct me if I'm wrong on how I understand it. We've got 4 judges, and you throw out the high score and the low score. So the score will be based on the 2 middle scores from the judges.
Yeah.
And then how many points, if the high and the low are off by so many points, do you review it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we've implemented a review. We started it at Abilene, and our ultimate goal with the review is that a penalty that might or might not have gotten missed gets taken care of. So, a 3 or a 5 point penalty, if if one judge missed it and he marks that horse high, or 2 judges missed it even, and they mark that horse high, it doesn't take away from that competitor that didn't make that penalty. So it's not for us to go inside a room and rejudge that horse, because that's not fair either, because we're judging in real time, right? So to go back in and judge the whole run is not fair. But we go back in and judge to make sure we didn't miss that penalty. And sometimes you'll have judges that say, hey, it wasn't that penalty to me. Well, perfect. That's why you get paid to be here and have your opinion, But at least we're doing our very best. And I mean, the cutting's a 3-point spread. Yeah. That's an automatic review. We're at a 5-point spread right now. And I fully believe we'll get to that 3-point spread. But it's just, over time and us continuing to work and educate ourselves as well as the judges, as well as the competitors and the owners. And, in reality, rope horse futurities is really young. I mean, it's, 8 years going now. And I mean, that's very, very young compared to the cutting and the reining and the cow horse that have been around for 70, 80, 100 years, whatever it is. But it's funny because, we got guys to come in that were based in those other disciplines that all they were there for was to teach judging, not how to judge a rope horse, just how to judge a run. And so the judges are sitting there listening. They're like, man, I've never thought of that. Well, those same guys that have been directors of judging for these major associations, they are learning too still. Like they'll tell you to this day, they're like, hey, we're still changing as we go to get better, and that's our goal. Like we're not here to say, hey, we're going to figure this out and this is how it's going to be. We're here to say, we're going to always work on this. You know what I'm saying? From here on out.
Right. In review, will you ever adjust the scores if, like, let's just say if there was a penalty or wasn't a penalty, or how does that work as far as?
Yeah. So it depends on, obviously, if the penalty was committed, we set the judge in there by himself. He watches that section to see if the penalty was committed. And if he's like, you know what, I missed that in real time, then the penalty goes on the horse. But like I said, sometimes, you have two people's opinion. They're not going to be the same necessarily. So there are times where it's like, hey, I didn't think it was a penalty and this guy says it was. So that's what you get. You know what I mean? And it's the same in the cutting. I think the misses in the run are a big thing they have to review. It's like, how bad was it? And some judges will say that was a miss and some won't,
Right.
So, but the ultimate goal of the review is to make sure that those penalties get given when they're supposed to. And it doesn't cost the next competitor from winning, because like we say, we're here to be fair as a group and put on the most fair event we can do,
Well, and two, it probably helps the judges understand, like, hey, if I'm getting pretty far off of the other guys, like, what are we all looking at? How's it going? And so it kind of creates this environment where everyone is looking kind of from the same lens, you'd say. Like they're like,
Yeah.
and if they got to be able to defend stuff that they do, and I think that's really important. And so it keeps everyone on the same page, and I think that's a good way to set up judging. That's what I really liked about it.
Yeah.
Are you guys the only ones using 4 judges? Isn't it typically
no,
2
Royal
or 3?
Crown uses 4.
Okay.
They average their scores.
Okay.
Platinum medal, Billy Myers, which he's involved with us as well through our breeders incentive and everything. So he uses the same system. He was actually the first one to use it. He and I talked about it a long time ago when he first started his event, and he used it. And there's some things about like where you place your judges that are important. There's certain things that we're gonna keep working on to make better. To me, dropping the high and the low score and putting 4 judges, one judge by the box, one judge here, one judge here, one judge here. If the horse was bad in the box and he's the only one that really saw it, his score's getting dropped anyways. So that doesn't really get you what you're looking for. So you want these guys to see the same run.
Yeah.
The best way you can. And I think that, it's the same in the cow horse when a cow horse, they don't get their cow down the fence they want. He comes down the judge side fence. They don't see as much stuff, but at least they all saw the same run,
Right.
And so that's important to me because that's what we're doing. We're making a run in front of these 4 judges and they're supposed to mark the best run. Well, they should all see the same run.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's not my necessarily, I agree with that, but it's what all the other associations do. It's not just us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I just soon ride their coattail because they're smarter than me. So I'm going to do what they're doing.
Well, taking something that's proven out,
Exactly.
making it yours. I think that's
exactly
basically how most businesses do
Yeah.
things. They take
Yeah.
little pieces that they like, add it to what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like it. Last question I have with this is obviously the payouts. I think you guys have done a great job with that. Like, talk to me about the payouts. How do you see them growing? Like, I think that's the other thing is now it's like the money gets kind of spread out, and it can be expensive for everyone involved. And I think that's what you guys have. I mean, I think you're doing a really good job with that as well.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's all credit to prior to me getting there. I mean, our stallion incentive has been a huge blessing. I mean, thanks to the stallion owners that have believed in us from the start, and knowing that we're giving every dollar they put in right back out. You know, that money goes right back to the pockets of the stallion owners and the competitors. And so I think that's something that they appreciate. You know, we all know that horses are expensive. We all know that the stallion game is a tough game. The breeding game's a tough game. Same with the breeders' incentive. It's like, man, we've been breeding these horses for years and years, and you know, we get what we make off of them when we sell them, but then we're done. Well, now, you know, in the end, these stud owners are still getting paid back, and these breeding farms are still getting, these breeding programs are still getting paid back after they sell these horses, and so hopefully it drives our industry to where these horses become more valuable because they're capable of winning more money. And we look at it, you know, Caleb is kind of a little mastermind about payouts, and he makes sure that they pay as deep as we can pay them, but first place still makes real money, you know, and that's not easy to do. You know, we've been lucky to have some big sponsors come on board right away, and have new sponsors coming on board, as you know, today. And so hopefully we just keep continuing to grow this to where our whole industry continues to get to grow for everybody. You know, this isn't just for us as Gold Buckle. I mean, yeah, we're in it for the good of everybody, you know?
Right. I think it's off to a hell of a start, really, and
Yeah.
I think it's got a great foundation, and I think that's the best thing is I think it's as fair of a situation as I've seen. It's as good for the horse owners, breeders, everyone is that I've seen. I think it's, you know, it's pretty cool to be in that spot,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, I appreciate that. And we're all, I mean, it's hard because you want to make the best decision for the business, but when within that comes making the best decision for everybody, you
Yeah.
know. So it's like I said earlier about educated decisions. It's pretty important, you know. So luckily we have a group of guys that are all like-minded in that sense, you know.
We've got some good vision for it,
Yeah.
where it's going to go, and I think that's a cool spot. It is set up to grow.
Yeah. Yep.